Well, hey, my name is Meg, and today I am going to summarize this book, but with a little twist. I am going to summarize it from the perspective of a devout Catholic. So, just a little bit of backstory. As many of you may know, this book is pure fairy smut. I will admit, I did not know that until I was a little bit too invested into the plot. So I stuck through it and I'm glad I did because the books after this one in the series definitely get a lot better. But of course, you have to read the first book to know what happens in the second books. So here I am. I will also be doing this as I drink a glass or two of wine because I'm Catholic and we like to drink. And also, I don't think you can really get through this book without a glass or two of wine. Let's get started. Cheers. It's okay. Let me give you a little background on the story. This is set in a made up country split in half, and they are divided by a wall. There's the fairies, and then there's the humans on the other side because they hate each other. And it is to keep both fairies alive, but more particularly to keep the humans alive. Our book begins in the forest. It is winter. And our main character, Feyre, is sitting up in a tree, hungry and cold, as she is waiting for something to come out that she can eat. So Feyre is basically the fantasy version of Katniss Everdeen. Feyre's like, I'm so cold, and I'm so hungry, and I'm so poor. She then spots a deer coming up in the clearing, and she's like, yes, this is exactly what I've been wanting. And she pulls her arrow back and she's ready to shoot. And then she sees two glowing yellow eyes hiding in the bushes. And she's like, oh, well, if I can try to kill the deer first, whatever that is won't get it. Then the animal steps out into the clearing. It is a wolf. And Feyre sees the wolf and she's like, that's a big wolf. That is a really, really big wolf. That might be a fairy. That's suspicious.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's weird.
But then she's like, then again, it also might be a wolf. And that wolf is about to eat my dinner. And I'm so hungry and so poor and so cold. So then she pulls out one of her special arrows. It's an ash arrow. And ash wood is the only wood that is able to kill fairies. She shoots the wolf with the ash arrow just to be safe. She just basically thought, if it's a wolf, great, I killed it. But if it's a fairy, great, I killed it. They deserve it. And she also kills the deer and she's like, yum, yum, I have dinner. Let me go home now. So Feyre brings the wolf pelt and the deer home for dinner. And immediately her older sisters, Elaine and Nesta, are like, oh my gosh, great. We've been starving. Thank you for bringing us food. And Feyre's like, yeah, you're welcome. And here's a little bit about Nesta and Elaine. Nesta is the oldest and she is, she's kind of a pill. Not very enjoyable to be around. Elaine is Nesta's favorite. Elaine is basically a princess, but not the kind of princesses that actually do anything with their lives. Like, she would just rather just stay in her castle and do nothing. She likes gardening. That's something. That's all she does. Feyre and her family used to have a lot of money. Their dad used to be a merchant, and he called himself the Prince of Merchants. He got into a pretty bad business deal and lost their whole fortune. And when he couldn't repay, the debtors came and bonk bonk shattered his life. So he's basically crippled. The only thing that he does is he whittles animals out of wood. So he basically leaves his daughters to starve while he is like, look, I made you something. And they're like, thanks, Dad. I'm hungry. Get a job. Feyre asks them to do just a little bit around the house. She asked Nesta to chop some wood so that they could use it for a fire. And Nesta said, nah. It makes my hands feel weird. Be so for real right now. Be so for real right now. They're starving. So then the next day they go to the market and Feyre sells the pelts and she gives Nessa and Elaine a little bit of money and they're like, yippee, we can go get whatever we want. And they run into this group of humans called the Children of the Blessed. They basically worship the fairies like they're gods. So then the next night they're home, they're eating their deer stew or whatever the frick, they're whatever it is. And they're just like, wow, this stew is so good. This is so peaceful. I wonder when the story is going to pick up. Bam! The door is knocked down and a huge beast is standing in the doorway. And the beast is yelling, murderers! And before I move on, I feel that I need to describe how Sarah J. Maas describes the beast, because I literally cannot picture it in my head. The beast had to be as large as a horse, and while his body was somewhat feline, his head was distinctly wolfish. I didn't know what to make of the curled elk-like horns that protruded from his head. There was no doubting the damage his black, dagger-like claws and yellow fangs could inflict. Okay, so here's the thing. I will never act like I am the person who is able to visualize things perfectly. I can picture like bits and pieces, but like not much. I read this and literally nothing came to my mind. I was like, what would this creature look like? So I put pen to paper and I was like, I'm just going to draw. I am not an artist, but I think this is pretty good. And I drew it exactly like it is described. So here is my rendition of the beast. It's exactly as described. As big as a horse, pretty big, distinctly feline, the head of a wolf, elk-like horns, claws. Okay, listen, I assume that the beast is probably very intimidating. So again, Feyre and her whole family, they're like hiding. They're like, ah, and the beast keeps yelling, murderers! And Feyre's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, you killed my friend. And Feyre's like, no, I didn't. I definitely did not kill your friend because you are clearly a fairy and I have not killed a fairy. And he's like, yes, you did when you were in the woods. And Feyre was like, okay, well, I did kill a wolf that kind of looked like it was a fairy. My bad. The beast is like, okay, well, because of the treaty between Fae and humans, it is a life for a life. Like, you guys remember in middle school or something when you learned about Hammurabi's code, where it was an eye for an eye? I remember learning about that, and that was like pretty much all I remember from my 6th grade world history. I just remember an eye for an eye, and I was like, that seems fair. So that's how it is here. And so he was like, all right, so I will kill you now. And Fair was like, but can you do it outside? Because looking at you, I think that you will make a mess of killing me. And I don't want my traumatized family to have to clean me up because the me is going to get everywhere. So can you just do it outside just to spare them, spare the house, because we all know they're not going to clean it anyways. They'll probably just move or just be homeless because they can't do anything for themselves. And the beast is like, the fact that you thought to ask me where you could be killed is actually kind of funny. So fine, I will not kill you, but there is another way that your life can be offered to make up for this fairy's life. you come back with me and live in Prithian, which is the fairy realm, for the rest of your days. Oh my gosh. So then Faye was like, let me think about that. It seems like I'd probably be in like a life of servitude and stuff because you, Faye, y'all are evil. And the beast is like, don't care. You're coming with me. So they're on their journey to Prithian, and Farrah's just like yapping. She is just talking the beast's ear off. She's like, do you just look like this like all the time? What are your powers? Are you just like a normal fairy, or are you high fae? High fae, like I guess there's like different species of fairies. It's never really explained. High fae are just like better fairies? I don't know. It's not really explained. And if it was explained, I didn't pay attention. So she's talking, and the beast just not really responding. So then he just knocks her out so that she'll stop annoying him, which is like really funny. Great technique. If you are kidnapped, just keep talking until they decide to return you. Well, anyways, never mind. Then Feyre makes it to Prithian, and when she wakes up, it's spring outside. And she's like, slay. They pull up to this large manor, and the beast is like, all right, your room's over there. And Feyre's like, wait, I'm not being held prisoner? And he was like, no, you can do whatever you want here. You just need to come back. And she's like, that seems sus. So can I go home? And he's like, no, you have to stay here. Which I don't really get how that's not the same thing as being a prisoner. Like, I get that she's not in like a jail cell, but like, she can't leave. So Feyre's just like, oh, okay. She gets into her room, and she is approached by the housekeeper. Her name is Alice, and she's like, welcome to the spring court. And Feyre's like, I'm in the spring court. So basically, it's beautiful. Flowers everywhere, constant breeze, blue skies, beautiful. Eventually, Feyre walks down to go have some dinner, and she sees this beautiful man with long blonde hair sitting at the table, but he has a green and gold masquerade mask on. And she's like, who are you? And he's like, I my name's Tamlin. And she's like, oh, so you're the beast. He's like, yes, I am. And then there's this other guy with him, and he has long red hair, and he's wearing a little masquerade mask that looks like a fox. And Feyre's like, oh, interesting fashion choice. Is this like a thing here? Because also Alice is wearing a mask, and she's like, is this like a dress code? Is this like a thing here? Am I wearing a mask? Do I need a mask? And they're like, no, it's just like it's a thing. It's kind of like a curse. And she's like, oh, sorry, I asked. She finds out that the red-haired, fox-faced, fox-masked guy, his name is Lucian, and he's basically Tamlin's right-hand man. Hi, Editing Meg here. Clearly, a lot of time has passed since I filmed the first part of this video, but we're just not going to talk about that. And as I was editing, I realized that I forgot to mention some very, very important plot points, so that's what I'm going to talk about right now. First of all, I totally forgot to mention that Lucian just is missing an eye. He has a metal eye. And Lucian immediately has so much sass, and he's like, this is the girl that killed Andrus? Really? Because also, like, remember, Feyre is tiny. She is likely emaciated because she's been so hungry. And, she killed a fairy. Apparently that's not common. And Lucian's like, why didn't you just kill her? And Tamlin's like, because I didn't. And you better not touch her. And Lucian's like, okay. So During her time in the spring court, Favorite's just kind of like, okay, well, I want to get out of here. All right. I don't like being here. And I still think that fairies are evil. And there's something a little bit suspicious about this whole court. Because here's the thing. She is in the spring court. She's in this nice manor, and she has only encountered 3 people.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's weird.
And that is Alice, the housekeeper, Tamlin, and Lucian. So she's a little bit like, where is everyone? And it needs to be said, Lucian is not a fan of Farah. Lucian's just kind of like, she is human. I don't get why she's here. Let's just get rid of her. I mean, fair enough. So, anyways, Farah decides to go to Lucian, and she's like, okay, buddy, listen, I know you don't like me, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to strike a deal. If you can help me find out more about this whole place, I'll be out of your hair. I'll leave. I'll be gone. And Lucian's like, yep, I will help you out. So there is this type of fairy, and it is called the Surreal. And if you can trap the Surreal, but just letting you know, it's really hard to catch the Surreal, it can tell you anything you ask for as long as it's trapped. And Farah's like, okay, great. How do I do that? And Lucian's like, you're a hunter. Figure it out. It is also dangerous. So if something happens, I guess I'll be there. Farah's like, okay, slay. I'm going to go catch the Surreal. And Lucian's like, okay, sure. Good luck. So, of course, Farah catches the Surreal because apparently she's a really good hunter. She's just like, okay, can I break the treaty? Is there any way I can get home to my family? And the Surreal's like, nope. Sorry, you are stuck here to fulfill what you were brought here for. And Farah's like, darn, okay. And the Surreal's like, here's what I'll tell you. Stay with the High Lord and you will be safe. So then Farah goes, wait a second. Tamlin's a High Lord? So as they're finishing up their little chat, the Surreal starts to get increasingly agitated and terrified. And he's like, hey, human, please let me go. Like, let me go. There's like, I'm scared. Let me go. And Farah's like, of what? And the Surreal's like, please let me go. I would like to go, please. I am terrified. So then Farah's like, okay, fine. I'll let you go. So then she lets the Surreal go, and the Surreal's just gone. And then all of a sudden, these 3 fairy called the Naga. And basically, they are very, very bad fairies. And so Farah has her like bow and arrows, and she's trying her best. So she starts screaming, and then all of a sudden, a beast comes into the clearing. It's Tamlin, and he takes care of all the Naga, and he's like, you are an idiot. What were you doing out here? And Farah wasn't going to sell Lucian out. So she was just like, I don't know. I wanted to go for a stroll. Tamlin's like, okay, never do that again. Throughout Farah's time in the spring court, she keeps getting attacked by these evil fairies. First, it was these fairies called the Bogey. Tamlin saved the day. Then there's ones called like the Puka. Those are also scary. They're not really that important to the plot, I promise. In the middle of the night, Farah is awoken by hearing a bunch of clamoring downstairs. So she runs down and she sees Tamlin and Lucian carrying in a fairy, crying in pain with huge wounds on his back. And he's crying out, she took my wings. She took my wings. And Farah looks around and Tamlin's like, he's from the summer court. And he's crying and saying, she took my wings. She took my wings. And Tamlin and Lucian are trying everything they can to heal the fairy. but they know that nothing can be done. So Feyre just looks at the fairy and she just says, "It's okay. It's okay. You will receive your wings again." And the fairy looks at her and he's like, "Really?" And she says, "Yes, you will receive your wings again." And she held his hand as he took his last breath. After he died, Tamlin turned to Feyre and he said, "Why did you do that? I thought you hated Fae." And Feyre says, "Well, I wouldn't want to die alone. I would hope that someone else would do that for me." And Tamlin just nodded, and then Feyre went back to bed. So basically, then Feyre's starting to get a little bit confused because she's like, "Okay, you are the High Lord of the Spring Court. Why is it being attacked all the time by all of these fairies?" Because every time Tamlin would come back from like ripping apart whatever fairies that were attacking Feyre or attacking the Spring Court, he just looked beat. And Feyre was like, "I didn't think High Lords looked like that, like got tired. What's up?" And Tamlin is just basically like, "Oh, well, you know, there's this blight that's kind of taking over the land, and it's really been impacting my powers." And Feyre's like, "Oh, okay. Is there a cure? How can we fix it?" And he's like, not yet." I don't know. It's just, there's that going on. Then things are starting to kind of like get a little bit more comfortable between Feyre and Tamlin. Feyre tells Tamlin that she loves to paint. Her whole family got her paints one time, and she shared a room with her sisters. So on their dresser thing, they each had a drawer, and so Feyre painted the drawers. So Nesta's drawer, she painted with fire because Nesta's fiery. And for Elaine, she painted very pretty flowers because she loves to garden. And Feyre didn't know exactly what to put for herself, but she kind of felt inspired. So she painted a night sky with stars and a beautiful moon. And that was her drawer. So that was like her favorite pastime. And she tells Tamlin that, and he's like, "Okay, cool. Let me get you some paints, and I'll clear out this room that we don't use, and you can make that your own little studio." And Feyre was like, "Oh my gosh, really? You would do that for me?" And Tamlin's like, "Yeah." So then Feyre's painting and she is loving her life. Then Tamlin and Lucian, the world's best third wheel, go on a little bit of a field trip, and they go to this field and it's super beautiful, and they're just having a grand old time. And Tamlin takes Feyre to this pond that looked like starlight. And he's like, "All right, let's go swimming." And so they both strip down to their underwear. At least there's that. At least they have underwear on. And then they just swap life stories. And Feyre just kind of tells Tamlin about her life and about how she doesn't remember much about when she and her family, they used to be rich, but Nesta and Elaine were a bit more attached to that lifestyle than she was. So it was really difficult for them to transition to being poor. And that her dad is good for nothing. And so she had to step up. And Tamlin's like, "That's not fair that you had to step up." And she's like, "Yeah, it's not, but like someone had to." Also, like, Lucian's off to the side and he's kind of moody. And Feyre's like, "Okay, what the heck is up with this guy?" And Tamlin just basically says, "Lucian is the son of the High Lord of the Autumn Court. A long time ago, Lucian fell in love with a woman that wasn't the desired rank of fairy within the Autumn Court, and all of Lucian's brothers, including his father, murdered her right in front of him. So He then escaped the Autumn Court because he did not ever want to be associated with it. And now he's been in the Spring Court. So sometimes it's a little bit moody. And Dara's like, okay, cool. Cool to know that backstory. And Feyre's just kind of like getting to the point where she's like, okay, maybe all Fae, like maybe not all Fae are bad. Maybe these are good. And also Tamlin is hot. So then they're getting closer. And Feyre, she wants to write home to her family. But here's the thing. Feyre can't write or read because she is illiterate. She was never taught how to do any of those things. And it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. So then Tamlin helps her write it. And he writes her a poem that with each stanza, it gets more dirty. It's kind of gross. I don't get it. But I guess Feyre likes it. So then it comes to Calanmai. And this is a night that all the fairies are looking forward to. Basically, Tamlin and Lucian, they're like, all right, bye, Feyre. We're going to go to Calanmai. You stay here. And Feyre's like, wait, I want to come. And they're like, no, you cannot come. And Tamlin's like, I'm serious, Feyre. Like, it is incredibly dangerous for a human to go. Please do not go. Please stay in your room, like all night. Lock the door. Stay far, far away. Do not go. And Lucian even chimes in, and he's like, yeah, Feyre, like, please listen to Tamlin. Do not go. Do not go. And then they leave. And it took all of 5 seconds for Feyre to go all, well, you can't stop me because I can't read. So she's like, they can't tell me what to do. They told me that it's dangerous. And so I'm going to go anyways because I want to prove a point. How this girl provided for her entire family is beyond me because she's dumb. She's really dumb.
No, you are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
So then she goes and it's like there's a bunch of bonfires and drums and fairies everywhere. She's like, okay, cool. I just want to find Tam Tam and Lucian and hang out with them and like party because I have FOMO. Basically, Calanmai is this rite that happens once a year where the High Lord of the Spring Court does some sort of rite where whatever happens in it provides enough magic to fuel the Spring Court for the next year. Something like that. So she's strolling out and yada, yada, yada. So many fairies everywhere. And then she is immediately accosted by 3 Fae men who are like, hey, hey. And she's like, this is scary. And she's like, please let me go. And they're like, a human, because they can smell that she's human. And like, a human, yum, yum. We haven't seen a human in here for so long. So good to see you. So like, we're going to do a lot of things to you. Gross, bad, very bad, very, very, very bad. I want to make that very clear. Very, very, very bad. And they're ready to do probably very, very terrible things to her. Then all of a sudden, their eyes widen in fear. And they start to run away. And Feyre's like, and then in walks the most beautiful man Feyre had ever seen. I'm already blushing. It's not fair. So basically, this mysterious hottie, he strolls in and He is described to have black hair and these like violet eyes. And Farrah like can't take her eyes off of him. And he goes, "There you are. I've been looking for you." I am blushing. I am blushing. And then he turns to the three Fae men and he's like, "Guys, thanks so much for finding her for me. Go away now." And he turns to Farrah and he's like, "You are definitely not supposed to be here." And she's like, "Yep, yep, I know. I am leaving." And he's like, "Okay, cool. Nice to see ya." And then she's like running, and then she runs into Lucian, and Lucian's like, "Why are you here?" Like, he's just done. He is done. He's like, "Come on. You're going home." And Farrah's like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, you're right. You were so right. I should definitely have not come out here." When she gets home, before she is sent up to her room to be in timeout, Lucian tells her, "The great rite is when Tamlin, the High Lord of the Spring Court, has to pick from a group of maidens to have sex with, and their sex supplies enough power or something or magic, whatever, to for the rest of the land for the whole year." And here's the thing. I just think this is stupid writing because I don't know, it just felt like they wanted to put sex in there somehow to like prove to you that this is a sexy or spicy book. And I just think that's stupid. Like, there could be many different ways. There would be way cooler to supply the court with power other than like him every year having sex with a different woman. And like, also gross. Imagine you're there and you're like, "I know what my High Lord is doing." Gross. And so Lucian is like, "You need to go, and I need to try to find a way to get your scent off of me, because if Tamlin can smell you anywhere, he is going to go feral looking for you." Ick. Farrah's in bed, and the party's still raging. She kind of dozes off, and then she wakes up again, and she doesn't hear the drums anymore. And she's like, "Okay, I guess the party is done. Cool. You know, I want a cookie." So then she goes down into the kitchen and she's like sneaking around and she goes to get a cookie. And then all of a sudden, Tamlin walks in and he's angry. And he's like, "I smelled you. I almost couldn't control myself tonight. I had to pick a random woman to have sex with. And I wish it was you."
Brother,
And Farrah's like, "Okay." And then hold on. And then he pins her to the wall and bites her neck. He takes a little chomp. And apparently Ferris turned on by this. And I guess he knows. Anyways, so then it comes to the next morning and Farrah wakes up and there's like the bite mark on her neck. And she goes to like put on a nice dress that covers it up because she's embarrassed. And then she's like, wait, I want him to know what he did. So then she like makes sure it's very visible. And she walks down and she's like, good morning. And Tamlin's just like, hey, good morning. And she's like, is he not embarrassed by this? And Lucia's just sitting there like, and they was like, you took a chomp out of me. And Tamlin's like, I told you to stay inside. I told you to stay away. I could not control myself, which he could have controlled himself, I think. Anyways, but I guess it begins their love story. And they're just like frolicking around, like, ha 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 ha, so fun, having a great time. And then they stroll out to the fountain in the spring court and they find a severed head. You heard me. A severed head. Just in the fountain. And they're like, must be the work of the night court. And Feyre's like, what's the night court? And they're like, evil. They are helping cause the blight, the sickness that is dampening our powers and really harming the spring court. And Feyre's like, oh, I hate them too. They sound evil. It's been the summer solstice and Feyre drinks some of the fairy wine, which makes her very, very tipsy, and she likes to dance when she's tipsy. I mean, same girl. Same. And apparently Tamlin has a fun little hobby. He likes to play the fiddle. And I guess he plays the fiddle very sexily because Feyre's like sexy dancing in front of him. And he's like apparently very endeared by that. And then at the end of the night, they end up sharing their first kiss. Yay, good for them. And then the next day, they are all lovey-dovey, and Lucian's just sitting there like, get a room. And then they notice that the wards have been breached, and they know that somebody is coming that shouldn't be there. And they're like, okay, we're going to hide Feyre. So fairies have this ability to glamour. And basically, it's just like turning something invisible or making something look different, whatever. So Tamlin glamours Feyre, and Lucian just kind of like stands in front of her, like super casual, like, nothing's going on here. Definitely, we're just sitting here. And in walks mysterious hottie from Calanmai. And they all hate him. And they're like, what do you want, Rhysand? That's right. Mysterious Hottie's name is Rhysand, and he is the High Lord of the Night Court. And he's like, oh, did you guys get my present? And they're like, yes, we got your present. It was disgusting. That is it. We didn't like it. And he's like, okay, well, I have just come here to tell you that you are running out of time. Pretty soon, like, she is going to want you. Pretty soon, like, she is ready to cash in. And Feyre's like, she? And they're like, whatever. Go away, Amarantha's whore. And so Feyre's like, so maybe there isn't actually like a sickness. Maybe it's a person, and it's a woman, nonetheless. We'll run the world, girls. We'll run the world, girls. And Rhysand's like, okay, fine. I just thought I'd let you know, give you a little visit, see how things are going here, and we'll be waiting for you under the mountain. And so he's getting ready to go, and then he goes,
wait a minute.
so why are there 3 place settings here then? Because I'm only counting like 1, 2 of you. Where's the 3rd? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And then Rhysand goes, oh, I know. She's right behind Lucian. Hey, queen. And Favor's like, oh, no. So then Rhysand, he strolls up to Feyre and he's like, hey, I saw you at Calanmai. And Feyre's like, get out of here. And he's like, okay, fine. I'll leave. But first,
Who are you?
what's your name? And Feyre's like, ain't no way I'm telling him my actual name. So then she's like trying to think of a fake name to give. And the only name that pops up into her head is Claire Better, who was her neighbor growing up. And so she's like, Claire Better? And Rhysand goes, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. And then he turns to Tamlin and Lucian. He's like, Amarantha would be really pissed if he found out that she was here. And she would probably kill her. So I could just go tell her right now. And Tamlin and Lucian are like, please no. Like, please don't do it. And Rhysand goes, okay, fine. Maybe I won't tell her. But first, get on your knees and beg. So then both Tamlin and Lucian get down on their knees and they're like, please. And Rhysand's like, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. Maybe I won't tell her. Okay, bye. So then Tamlin turns to Feyre and he's like, you need to leave.
You need to leave.
And Feyre's like, I thought I couldn't leave. And he's like, yeah, consider the treaty void. You need to leave. So then, 1 second. So then Feyre's like, okay, fine, I guess I'll leave like tomorrow. And she's in her bed ready to go to sleep. And in walks Tamlin. And he sits on the bed. And you already know. And he's like, I really wish you didn't have to go. She's like, yeah, me neither. Want to have sex. So they have sex for the first time. And I guess it's really good. I didn't read it. Anyways, and then Feyre wakes up and Tamlin's like, okay, time to pack up. You're gonna go. So then Feyre gets in her little carriage ready to go home. And Tamlin's like, oh, okay. Bye, Feyre. I love you. And Feyre goes,
I love you.
and I'm like, girl, what the heck was that? And I guess in her internal monologue, she's basically like, I don't know if I'm ever coming back here. I'm probably not. I would like him to move on and find somebody else because it's not me. Which, like, fair enough, but also, come on, imagine. Anyways, Feyre gets home, not to her cottage, but to a mansion. Her family is in a mansion. Yeah, you heard that right. Turns out that Tamlin had somehow given them money and glamored their memories so that it was like Papa Archeron, right? The last name is Archeron. They're like Papa Archeron struck a really good business deal and they were returned to riches and then they got to live in a manor. He also glamored all of their memories of Feyre being taken by him in his beast form and basically told them that the reason why Feyre was gone was because she was sent off to take care of their dying rich aunt. Okay. So she gets back, and Elaine's all like, yay! And Papa Archeron's like, yay! And they're sitting in the corner like, welcome home. So then Elaine's all like, oh my gosh, like, how was spending your time with our aunt? And Feyre's like, yeah, she died. She died. But it was really good to spend time with her and, like good old family time. But I'm so happy to be home. And wow, we're rich now. Basically. And that's still kind of like a little bit standoffish. And she's like, so then Nesta pulls Feyre aside and she's like, where were you really? And Feyre's like, I was with our aunt who died, and now I'm home because she's dead. And Feyre's like, no, you were taken by a fairy. And I didn't know where you ended up going, but I went looking for you. And Feyre was like, you looked for me? And that's just like, yeah, whatever, but I couldn't find you. So I came back here, and Elaine and Dad were all stupid and easily manipulatable. So I was just sitting here knowing the truth while they got to bathe in riches. And I didn't even know if you were alive or not. But I guess you're alive. And then so Feyre ends up telling her everything that happened about her falling in love with Tamlin, because again, she's in love with Tamlin. About her falling in love with Tamlin, the fairies aren't that bad. There's this sickness, there's this blight, there's this woman who is a big bad, and she's going to do really bad things. And Nessa's like, so you love this man? And Feyre's like, yeah. And Nessa's like, so why didn't you tell him? And Feyre's like, you know, I should tell him because I do love him. And Nessa's like, yeah, go ahead, go. I'll cover for you. So then Feyre goes back to Prythian. She goes back to the Spring Court because apparently she remembers the way. My face feels hot. So Feyre returns to the Spring Court and it is absolutely destroyed. Utterly ransacked. Tamlin and Lucian nowhere to be found. And she's like, okay. So she runs into Alice, and Alice is like, okay, Queen, exposition time. So then Alice basically tells her that 500 years ago, there was a huge war between humans and the Fae, and Feyre knew about that. But one of the Fae leaders, her name was Amarantha, and her younger sister was named Clythia. Horrible name. And Clythia fell in love with one of the human generals named Jurian. And Jurian, turns out, didn't actually really love Clythia. He was just using her for information in the war. And once he got the information from her, he killed her. And Amarantha was very mad about it. And she was basically like, all right, time to die, Jurian. So she found Jurian, tortured him, and killed him. Basically dismembered him. Horrible, horrible things to him. And then the war ended. And she was basically after a ruling position in Prythian. And she got all the High Lords together and basically drugged them and took all of their powers, except Tamlin. Now, here's the thing. She had a crush on Mr. Timitam. And he was like, I'm good. And Girly didn't handle rejection well. And she was like, fine then. I put a curse on you. You get a mask. And you get a mask. You all get masks. Your entire court will have masks on for 50 years. And I'll also put a curse on you guys. Basically, you have 50 years to find a mortal to fall in love with you. But here's the thing. Since I believe that humans cannot love fairies in the way that they deserve, this mortal must have killed a fairy unprovoked with hate in her heart for fairies. And you, Timmy Tam, have to get this woman to fall in love with you. If she falls in love with you and admits that she did before the 50 years is up, then great, the curse is broken. But if not, then you and your whole entire court have to live with me under the mountain, which is where they all are, for the rest of your lives. But also they're immortals, so that means forever. It's stupid. I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid exposition and it's just too easy. But what do I know? I'm not an author. So Alice basically is like, Feyre, you are stupid. You are a stupid, stupid human girl. And Feyre's like, hey. And Alice is like, literally all you could have said is, I love you to Tamlin because you love him, right? And Feyre's like, yeah. And Alice is like, you stupid, stupid girl. You stupid, stupid girl. Why didn't you tell him? Because guess where they are? Under the mountain. They are under the mountain. And it's all because you couldn't be vulnerable and talk about your feelings. It's all your fault. And Sarah's like, okay, so I'm going to go tell him I love him. I think there's still time. And Alice is like, oh my gosh, I said you were stupid, but wow, you are really stupid. Girl, you're going to die if you go down there. And Feyre's like, well, I might as well try. And Alice is like, okay, queen, fine, whatever. I will take you to the entrance of Under the Mountain, but there is no way I'm going down there. Like, listen, I have 2 boys at home in the summer court, and I kind of need to be alive for them. So I'm going to make a run for it, and I will just show you where it is. It was good knowing you because you were definitely going to die. So Feyre's like, okay, cool. So basically, she sneaks into Under the Mountain, something that nobody survives from. She sneaks into Under the Mountain and is immediately accosted by the Adder, which is basically one of Amarantha's slaves. It's like this really, really scary, evil fairy being. It basically brings her to the center of the throne room, where all the other Fae are there, and Amarantha is sitting on her throne. And sitting right next to her is none other than Tamlin. And she's thrown in, and the Adder is like, look what I picked up. Dinner. And Amarantha's like, this is interesting. What are you doing here? And Feyre's basically like, I'm here to profess my love to that man up there, Tamlin. And Amarantha's like, interesting, because I thought we already got a girl who was human and who loved Tamlin. And Feyre's like, and she looks over and she sees none other than her former neighbor, Claire Better's body nailed to the wall, dead. And Feyre's like, yeah, my bad. And Amarantha turns to Rhysand, who is also standing there, and she's like, I thought you brought the Like, I thought that was the name that you told me of the girl who fell in love with Tamlin. Like, they look nothing alike. Like, what do you mean? And Rhysand just kind of like looks bored. He's kind of like looking at his fingers, and he's kind of like, I don't know. Every human looks the same to me. And Feyre's like, interesting. Interesting, because he definitely knew that was not me. So then Amarantha's like, okay, cool. Yay. This is fun. I love torture. So then basically she's like, okay, well, you were too late to break the curse. So we're going to play a little game. I'm going to give you a riddle. And if you can answer it, everyone's free. But, if you can't, then you will get to do 3 trials of my picking, once at every full moon. And if you survive all 3, then also you guys can be free. And Feyre's like, sure. So then Amarantha reads her off the riddle. There are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large, my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. It's a stupid riddle. I thought that the answer was very, very obvious. But of course, remember, Feyre is illiterate, so she's like, those are just like words to her. And so she's like, well, shoot, I guess I have to do the trials. So then Amarantha's like, great, I thought so. So then immediately she is dropped into a giant underground pit with a gigantic worm called the Middengard worm. Something like that. And basically she just has to get out of the little trap that she's in. And all the other fairies are like around her. It's like she's in the Colosseum. And also, like, I pictured the worm looking like the worms from Dune. I only saw the first Dune movie and I was kind of bored throughout it. I just couldn't stop seeing like Timothée Chalamet as Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya as Zendaya. Like, we need to go back to hiring actors that are not so recognizable, because I couldn't enter into the plot because all I was seeing was Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet. That's an aside, but it needs to be said. Hire actors that are kind of nobodies, and I think Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, I think they're great actors, but I also like could only see Timothée Chalamet, blah, 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 blah. I could only see them. Wine. So she's put into this pit with the worm that looks like the one in Dune, and everyone around her is cheering her on and all of that, and she's running around and she's in mud, but very quickly she realizes that it's definitely not mud. She starts kind of like channeling her hunter instincts, and she runs into a pile of bones, which she realizes are human bones. And she's like, that's not gonna be me, because I'm in love. Basically, she realizes that the worm is blind, so it can only track her by her scent. So then she decides to cover herself in the mud, which is very smart, so that it can't smell her anymore. And basically, she breaks some of the bones that they're more spiky, so that when the worm starts coming in her direction, because it can't sense that she's there, it will get stabbed by the bones. She ends up making it out, but not unscathed. She unfortunately breaks her arm, which also, slay. Only breaking your arm? Cool. Good for you. And the thing is, nobody's gonna heal her. And like, also, like, everyone was betting against her. Every single person bet that the worm would eat her, have a little snack, and everyone would be stuck under the mountain forever, except for one person. So basically, after the trial, Feyre is put into a prison cell, and she is given 3 meals a day, and it's basically bread and milk, I think, bread and water, maybe, but like barely enough to sustain a normal person. And the prison cell she's in is disgusting. And because nobody is healing her arm, it ends up getting infected. And she's like, okay, I am feverish and I am literally not even going to make it to my second trial. Until Rhysand walks over to her cell. And he's like, hey, you made me a lot of money last night. And Feyre realizes that the one person that bet that she would win was none other than Rhysand, the most evil man ever. And she's like, yeah, whatever, go away. Can't you see I'm in pain? And he's like, yeah, I see that. That's why I'm here. So I am here to offer you a bargain. And here's the thing. Fairy bargains are different than human ones. A fairy bargain is basically like, it is for life. And it is marked by a tattoo on your body, and you are held to it. So she is very hesitant to start a bargain with this man who she believes is evil. So she's like, yep, nope. And he's like, your arm is infected and you are about to die. So I would suggest that you accept the bargain. So basically, Rhysand is like, okay, I can heal your arm, and in return, you have to spend 1 week of every month with me in the Night Court. And Feyre's like, hell no. Hell no. Absolutely not. You are evil. I am not doing this. Like, haven't we been through this before, Feyre? Like, you were offered to, instead of dying, going to the Supreme Court, and you ended up having a great time. So maybe you should rethink your judgments on people. You know, don't judge a book by its cover. But also, Feyre can't read, so Feyre eventually accepts the bargain, and Rhysand's like, nice. And they shake hands, and as he is healing her arm, a tattoo of different like tendrils, it's really swirly, it's beautiful, gets onto her arm. And she's like, okay, cool. And he leaves, and he's like, all right, I'll see you around. Me again. So while Feyre was awaiting her trial, she was put to work. They said we would rather do slavery. So the first task Feyre had was she had to clean the floors somewhere. But the thing is the water that they gave her for the mop was dirty, very dirty water. So every time she tried to clean, she ended up making things dirtier. And I guess if she didn't clean it all by a certain time, she was gonna die. I think as she was cleaning the floors, she was just like, this isn't ever gonna happen. This isn't gonna work for me. And then the queen, I think that's what she was, of the Autumn Court. So Lucian's mom came and helped her clean. She like magically fixed the water, so then the water was clean, so she was able to actually clean the floors. And the reason why the Lady of the Autumn Court helped Feyre out is because Feyre did something that saved Lucian's life. I could totally research this, but I really don't feel like it. So there's that. And then her second task was that she was sent to somebody's room, and I guess a bunch of lentils were spilled in the fireplace, and they were like all in the ashes. And it was kind of the same thing as with the floor of, hey, Feyre, clean this up now, otherwise you're gonna die. And that was clearly an impossible task. And it turned out that the person's room she was in was Rhys, and he magically got rid of the lentils. So there's that. I think that's all I forgot. There's probably more things that I forgot. So after Feyre makes her bargain with Rhysand, time passes, and eventually it is time for her second trial. So she is put into this dungeon, and there's a gate, and on the other side of the gate is Lucian, and he is chained down to the ground. He's like, hey, Feyre, this is bad. And Feyre's like, yeah, I can see that. So then Amarantha tells her that her task is that there are 3 levers. 2 of them, if she pulls them, this big gate, floor, whatever you want to call it, with spikes is going to come down and kill both her and Lucian. But one of them will stop it. But it'll also like slowly be coming down at the same time. And don't you forget, Feyre is illiterate. So Feyre is trying to read what is on the levers, but she can't read it. And she's like, well, it was nice knowing you, Lucian. And Lucian, like, the spikes are coming down closer, and he's like, Feyre, just pull a lever. And she's like going through like the mental math in her head as best as she can as an illiterate human being. So she's like, okay, so maybe I think it's this one, because those other 2 just don't like feel right. They don't like sit right in my soul. So she goes for one, and she feels a tugging, and she's like, wait a second, that feels weird. So maybe I won't go for that one. So then she goes for another one, and she feels the tugging, and she's like, interesting. And then she goes for the third one, and she feels nothing. She's like, okay, interesting. So let me try for this one. And she feels the tugging, and then she like lets her hand go. So then she's like, okay, so odds are I should probably go for the one where I don't feel anything. And just a little, like, mind you, the spikes are coming down. Like, they are about to touch her. And Lucian is just sitting here being like, I should have never trusted an illiterate human being. This is horrible. I should have killed her from the beginning. I hate my life. And then Feyre ends up pulling the lever where she felt nothing, and the spikes stop right above her and right before Lucian. So she completed the second challenge. Lucian is happy. Feyre's like, great. And Amarantha is getting a little suspicious. And it, like, you can deduce that probably Amarantha knew that Feyre was illiterate. So she's a little bit like, how did she not pick the wrong one? So now it's in between the trials, and things get a little weird. So two women come to Feyre's cell, and basically they're like, "Come on, let's go." And she's like, "Okay." So then she goes, and she is dressed in this very, very see-through gown, barely any fabric. It is maybe 3 pieces of fabric just to cover like private parts and literally nothing else. Like, it leaves very, very little to the imagination. And the women who grabbed her, they also kind of they do little paintings on her, like swirls around her body. Um, and she's like, "Why are you doing this?" And they don't really answer. And then Rhysand walks in, and he's like, "Oh, hello. So you're my date for tonight?" And Feyre was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "You look beautiful." Ick. So then for the whole night, they're at this like party, and she is Rhysand's date. And he gives her some of the fairy wine, and Farrah's like, last time I took that, I went crazy. And he's like, that's the point. So he gives Farrah the wine, and she is dancing the night away. But not just like dancing, she's like dancing. And the reason why Rhysand put paint on her is because that way, if it is smeared, he can know where someone has touched her. Also, like, during this whole time, Tamlin is just sitting there right next to Amarantha, completely like, come on, dude. I don't know. Like, I know it's probably because he was trying to protect Feyre by showing he didn't care about her that much, but like, Amarantha already knew that he cared about her. Amarantha already knew that she loved him. Like, literally, what is it gonna do? I just think it's the easy way out and not like the genuinely masculine good thing to do. And I'm not saying that he should stop protecting her, but I think he could have done things differently instead of acting like she didn't exist. And so the next morning, Feyre wakes up, and she just sees that there are smears and handprints around her waist. And she just presumes that that is where Rhysand was holding her. And so she's like, okay, well, good. At least there's that. At least I know that Rhysand isn't touching me without my consent. That's good. Bare minimum, but that's good. For multiple nights in a row, Feyre wears a skimpy dress, is painted, and dances with Rhysand. And eventually, like, the nights are kind of like flying by. Like, she drinks the night away and then just basically sleeps for the whole day and then wakes up and drinks and all of that.
Molly, 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 Molly.
So it's one of the last nights of the parties because it's like the eve of her final trial, I think. And she's dancing on the fairy wine, and someone brushes past her, and she assumes it's Rhysand, but no, it's Tamlin. Tamlin somehow got away from Amarantha, and he like gives her these eyes. That means like get somewhere private. Ick. They get into a private area, and basically they're just macking. And Tamlin is ready to go all the way. He's like smearing the paint everywhere. Remember that. Remember the paint on her body. And basically, Feyre's like happy she's with him again and all of that. But she is a little bit confused because she assumed that if Tamlin was able to get out of the eyesight of Amarantha that he would try to get her out, but no, he just wanted to make out with her. So then Rhysand walks in and he's like, dude, get out of here because Amarantha just realized you're gone and you need to go. And Tamon's like, fine. And Farrah's like annoyed at Rhysand for interrupting their little quickie. Then she hears footsteps getting closer. And then Rhysand just slams his lips into hers and starts making out with her. And he's like putting his hands in all the places that Tamlin put his hands. And Amarantha walks in and she's like, what's going on here? And Rhysand's like, I mean, isn't that what she's good for? I was just like using her. And Farrah's like, hey. And Amarantha's like, fine, that makes sense. I mean, I know you view the humans as not worthy of any respect or anything like that. Like, I get it. And I mean, of course, like Farrah is humiliated and also pissed at Rhysand. And Tamlin's also pissed that he was basically interrupted. So then it comes to the final trial. Farrah is brought into the throne room, and in front of her are 3 fairies, but they're like covered. And Amarantha's like, okay, so you need to kill them all. Here are some ash daggers. Please remember, ash wood is the only wood that can kill a fairy. If you kill them all, everyone will be free. So Farrah's like, okay. And the entire time, like when I was reading it, the entire time I was thinking, I was like, there's gotta be a way to get out of it. Like, there's gotta be a way. Like, there's no way they're gonna do that. So then Farrah, she lifts off the hood of the first fairy, and it is a man, and he is just begging her. He is begging her to not kill him. And Farrah, why am I getting emotional? And Farrah just looks at him and she stabs him in the heart. Dead fairy number 1. Farrah's like, okay, only 2 more. And then she lifts off the hood of the next fairy, and it's an older woman. And she is just praying the entire time. And she looks at Farrah like she's ready. Like she knows that her death will result in the freedom of all of her kind. So then Farrah kills her. And then Farrah gets to the 3rd fairy. And she lifts off the hood, and a familiar face is there. It is none other than Tamlin. And Farrah just looks at Amarantha in disbelief. And she even looks at Rhysand. And Rhysand is shocked. And she looks at Tamlin and she's like, I can't kill him. I can't kill him. And then she remembers something. During her entire time in the spring court, she heard little jokes about Tamlin having a heart of stone. And at the time, she assumed it was a metaphor. But one of Alice's parting words with her before she went under the mountain was to always listen, to pay attention to what she is hearing. So Farrah took that advice and she looked at Tamlin and she was like, I hope to God that's true. And then she dives the dagger into his heart. But it stops because it hit stone. Tamlin falls over, and Amarantha is shocked. Shocked that Feyre would do that. So then Feyre looks at Amarantha, and she's like, all right, I did what you asked. Let them be free. And Amarantha goes, oh, I didn't say when. Be so for real right now. Be so for real. Come on. And Feyre's like, are you kidding me? And then Amarantha goes, yeah, so about that, I'm going to kill you now. And she begins breaking all of Feyre's bones. And in her mind, she's still trying to solve that riddle. She is still thinking of it over and over and over again. And then she realizes what the answer is. Love. The answer is love. Duh. And then Amarantha snaps her neck. Feyre's dead. And then the next chapter, Feyre is seeing herself from a different perspective. And she sees her body crumpled on the ground. And she realizes, oh my gosh, I am dead. And she's kind of floating away. And then she sees Rhysand run up and try to stab Amarantha. But Amarantha quickly shoos him away. And at this point, Tamlin then receives all of his power back. And he turns to Amarantha and basically goes Hulk mode. He kills her. He ripped out her throat. So she's dead. She's really dead. And as she is looking at things from this different perspective, she is in Tamlin's arms. And then she sees all the other High Lords of the other courts standing around him and her, and each of them pour out a drop of their power into her as a thank you for her sacrifice. And then Feyre rises from the dead, but not as a human, but a high fae. That's right. Feyre is a fairy. Feyre, fairy, fairy, Feyre. And then Feyre's like, we did it! Yay! And then everyone clapped. And then she and Tamlin go back to a little room in Under the Mountain before they go back to the Spring Court, and they're having a good time in the way that married couples should. Then she kind of feels something tugging at her, and she goes out onto the balcony and she sees Rhysand. And Rhysand asks, how does it feel to be High Fae? And Feyre says, I'm an immortal who has been mortal. This body is different. But this, I put my hand on my chest, my heart. This is still human. Maybe it always will be, but it would have been easier to live with it. Easier to live with what I did if my heart had changed too. Maybe I wouldn't care so much. Maybe I wouldn't care so much. Maybe I could convince myself that their deaths weren't in vain. Maybe immortality will take that away. I can't tell whether I want it to. Be glad of your human heart, Feyre. Pity those who don't feel anything at all. Feyre asks Rhysand, why did you help me under the mountain? And Rhysand says, because I didn't want you to have to suffer alone. or, to die alone. I would hate it if that happened to me. And Feyre remembered how she accompanied the summer court fairy in his last breaths, because she too did not want to suffer or die alone. I'm just going to read this last part. I couldn't explain about the hole that had already formed in my soul. Didn't want to, so I just nodded. Well, goodbye for now, he said, rolling his neck as if we hadn't been talking about anything important at all. He bowed at the waist, those wings vanishing entirely, and he had begun to fade into the nearest shadow when he went rigid. His eyes locked on mine, wide and wild, and his nostrils flared. Shock, pure shock, flashed across his features at whatever he saw on my face, and he stumbled back a step. Actually, stumbled. What is? I began. He disappeared. Simply disappeared. Not a shadow in sight into the crisp air. The next day, Feyre and Tamlin returned to the manor at the spring court, and they look upon all the people there, children laughing, Alice with her 2 boys smiling, Lucian calling them for dinner. And Feyre interlocks her arms with Tamlin's, and she says, "Let's go home." And that is the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses. As a devout Catholic, I believe that almost, if not every story, points to the story of salvation history, which culminates with Jesus' passion on the cross and his resurrection and ascension into heaven. And I believe that a lot of those themes are very present in this initial story. If you take out the spicy or the smut parts, you can very easily tell how Feyre, in many ways, acts as a sort of Christ-like figure. Out of genuine, pure, and true love, she decides to undergo the worst torture and suffering that anybody can imagine. Even unto the point of death, she does all of this out of love. And she is resurrected. Obviously, this whole story is very different from the story of our faith. In the future books, I will probably have more to say from the Catholic themes that I am noticing. But overall, I would say that this book is definitely not the best in this series, but a great introductory book. I enjoyed it, but I really enjoyed it when we got to the Under the Mountain part, because for most of it, it kind of just felt like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which that's been done before. But I enjoyed how Sarah J. Maas kind of made things more creative and had all of the trials and introduced some new characters and actually introduced stakes. Like, I was on the edge of my seat reading this book, and I had no idea what was going to happen next. So I applaud for that good writing. And even though I'm a Christian, a Catholic, I still enjoyed this book very much and was able to take so many things that related to my faith away from this book. With that being said, I encourage all of you to read this book if you're into fantasy, if you're into a little bit of romance. Just, I skipped some of the spicy parts, but honestly, it was maybe about like 0.5% of the book. Most of the book was about building up this plot. And that's what I really appreciated. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this first video on this channel. I have no idea if it's going to become a thing, but this is kind of just a little bit of a hobby, a little bit of a passion project for me. I do have a full-time job, so this is just something that's fun for me to do. And I plan to summarize A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in this series, which is probably my favorite book. I don't know how to finish videos because I've never done this before. I hope you guys like this. My wine is gone. I am 2 glasses in, and I think that is more than enough. Yeah, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe, like the video, comment, all that good stuff. I don't know if this is actually going to become like a big thing, but that would be really cool if it did. If not, it's just kind of becoming a little bit of a passion project, something fun for me to do in my off time. But if you enjoyed this, I am so happy you did, and I'm more than happy to continue putting out these types of videos because it's just fun for me. I will see you all in the next video, and my prayer for you all right now is that you all know how loved you are. Thank you.